Hi, I'm Aryn Morell, winemaker at Matthews Estate, and today we're going to be trying the 2010 Columbia Valley Sauvignon Blanc. This is our traditional bottling each year. We try and produce a more Sancerre-esque Sauvignon Blanc. We use typically very small amounts of Semillon in it, and this year there's 7% Semillon, 93% Sauvignon Blanc. The Sauvignon Blanc sourcing comes from Stillwater Creek Vineyard, which is on the Royal Slope, and from the Sagemore Vineyard, which is just north of Pasco. The Semillon comes from Rosebud, which is off of the Wahluke Slope. So normally what we would try and produce is something that gives us tropical richness, a lot of vibrancy. There's typically some pineapple core, some guava. It's not cloying as far as the fruits that we typically see, but it's also not grassy and herbal. What we try and get is a more classic wine that typically has more front to back palate. We're going to get a bit of minerality. We typically have great acidity from that site due to the soil. It's a mixture of fractured basalt and sand. The thing that I like the most is just the fact that we have such a long growing season up on the Royal Slope. We get very similar daytime highs to Red Mountain, which is a more red variety, dominant location, but we get much lower nighttime temps as a result of the elevation. So we're typically at 12 or 1300 feet up on the Royal Slope versus 800 or 900 feet on Red Mountain. So as far as hot sites go, for white varieties, to really make them be successful, we've got to have quite a bit of elevation. And that elevation helps us retain a lot of natural acidity. And we do get some minerality from the soil and the way that the vines grow on that particular location. And it ends up turning, what seemingly would be probably not the most ideal spot for white varieties to grow to be quite an exceptional location. So there is a bit of a green hue to this vintage. It was cool, it was long. So even though we got ripe, a lot of the internal grapes inside the clusters had a still more of a green color to them on the inside, where normally we're beginning to be yellow. And when the fruit gets to be very ripe, we kind of get this pink spotting on the exterior. So, we had more of a front and back look to the clusters this year, where the front of the clusters that saw the most sun exposure, we had that yellow and pink, and on the back we were green, where in most vintages we do get much more balance to that coloring, and that helps change the way the aromatics show, and we get typically a riper wine. And this year I think gave us a much more balanced wine. This kind of a mixture of, green and classic versus ripe and tropical, and we're certainly more towards the tropical side. We'll swirl it and give it a big taste. So this wine, in comparison to the Blackboard, does move more front to back. And there's a lot more forward texture to this wine. And actually there's quite a bit of density. And when I mean density is as far as the way that the wine impacts you from top to bottom, the way it kind of sits on your palate. So what we also like to do with a lot of our wines is to tell you what we think you should be trying them in as far as glass shape and size. So we've got a classic Bordeaux glass. This is a Cabernet Merlot glass. And for white wines, in most white wines, this is probably a glass that's too big. When you get a little bit of wine in here, you've got so much surface area inside that glass that by the time the aromatics reach your nose, there's just not much left. So you see the glass to the side, this is a Riesling Grand Cru. It's a little taller, it's got a much narrower focus, and as a result, by the time those aromatics get to your nose, they're really focused and they're really intense. And that's what we're looking for with a lot of whites, because the aromatics, molecularly, they're so light that a lot of times they just get lost inside those big glasses. So we prefer, if you were going to try and get the best experience out of your wine, that you look to find some smaller, bold glasses. They don't have to be exactly like this, but certainly you'd like to get something that's a little bit smaller than these traditional red glasses. So to come and get this wine, you can see the people at Matthews Estate in their tasting room in Woodinville or at matthewsestate.com.